Welcome, thank you for joining me. I would like to call this video part 2 to the maintenance. In the first video of a big maintenance, I will put the link right now on the screen and in the description below. What we did, that was a big job. We did the belt, the drive pulley, the water pump, the tensioner, the other idler pulley, everything that's related to this side of the engine, everything that spins. So that was a big video. And today we're gonna continue with the maintenance. Another, not as big job, but another important one. We're gonna change the pulley on the alternator. It's the same style that drives the compressor pulley and the water pump. Because the intake manifold is gonna go out, I think it's wise and it's time to replace the thermostat and the upper radiator hose. So I would like you to invite to view this video. Let's begin. So this is 2009 XC70 T6 inline 6-cylinder turbocharged. The mileage currently stands at 131,000 kilometers, and the alternator pulley was never changed before. The car is over 15 years old, so it's time. Let's begin. Let me show you all the parts. So INA, this is the manufacturer for Volvo. Good brand, quality parts, and the correct name for this is Alternator freewheel clutch. So it spins the alternator one way, and the other way it spins freely. So it's pretty clever design. We'll compare this part to the original from the factory once we take it off the car. And you need a special tool, 1072. I will list all the parts in the description below. You gotta have this tool to complete the job. It's an interesting design for this tool, and actually I've used it already a couple times. The intake manifold gaskets, this one is made in Spain by AJUSA, however you want to call it. Way cheaper than Volvo. Since we're going to be draining coolant, I'll refresh it. Not 100%, but at least some of it will be new. And we're going to mix it 50-50 to distilled water, because that's a concentrate. At the same time, MAHLE thermostat, it's a complete assembly with the temperature sensor. Volvo is going to charge you like 240 Canadian dollars. This was way cheaper. This was like 70. And again, this is the original manufacturer for Volvo. There is no need to overpay. And I feel like it's a good time to replace that. I recommend, if you're doing the thermostat, get this upper hose that goes on the thermostat. It's the upper radiator hose, original one. I think it was like 50 Canadian. Prices may vary. I also bought the lower radiator hose, and let me tell you ahead of time, I didn't replace it. Too much hassle, too much work, and I just skipped it. Let's keep it for another time. A short message from my sponsor, and it's d5t5.com. The guys are in business over 10 years, and they only specialize on Volvo, and they provide VDASH software, VDD dongle, and much more, including parts and accessories. Download VDASH for free, and you can diagnose your Volvo at home. You can see the problem, you can erase the codes, you can configure different modules, load the software, you can do ECU tuning, and much more. With the VDD dongle, you can download the app onto your Android or iPhone device, and you can pretty much control your Volvo through your phone. Very convenient, very amazing device. I'm much recommended. A lot of parts and accessories. So visit their website. The guys are awesome, and I truly believe in their product. So let's continue. So first of all, I'm going to drain the coolant. So I'm gonna open the coolant expansion cap, and we're gonna drain the coolant from the driver's side. On the radiator there is a drain valve. Attach a 3/8 hose to the connection. I've used a heat gun to warm up the hose so it's a little bit more pliable. And this is the drain valve. Just take long nose pliers and you want to spin it a couple times counterclockwise, and the coolant will start draining into the bucket. While the coolant is draining, we can continue with the disassembly. So we need to free up the intake manifold for it to come out. I can now disconnect this coolant hose, just 2 clips, and this is the evap valve. Disconnect everything that connects to it, the electrical connector, the vacuum hose. The rest can stay in position. And yes, don't forget to disconnect the battery since we're working on the alternator. A 10mm socket, disconnect the negative lead. Another connector right here. I'm not sure what exactly it does. So the intake pipe on this throttle body uses either a flathead screwdriver or much easier to use a 7mm socket here. Just loosen the clamp and slide the hose off the throttle body. I've actually made a video on throttle body cleaning a while ago. You can look it up on the channel. Once that's done, there is a connector on the throttle body. Just use a screwdriver to gently pry it down. That's pretty much it. The intake manifold can now come out. It should at least. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I missed another one. There's 7 bolts that hold it. It's 10mm. So just undo all the bolts. Now, in my opinion, after all those years, I'm removing the intake manifold. It's just a good idea to put new gaskets, so you avoid any vacuum, like air leaks. If you want to reuse and you want to save, you can do that, but I just didn't want to risk it. The Volvo seals are very expensive. I think it's like $30 each, which is insane. The kit that I bought was like, I think $50 for all 6. So those are the seals, the green rubber gaskets. This little hose, take a look at it, and if it's swollen, replace it. This is the part number, and I've actually did it off camera 2 years ago, just for the sake of it. So that's new. This is where the thermostat lives, right there. And here's another gasket. We want to be careful not to introduce dirt into the intake. They look pretty good. Now the alternator pulley is right here with a rubber connection to the engine side. And this is the thermostat again, thermostat assembly, and the hose. This is the lower radiator hose, which I'm gonna skip. Let's take a closer look at the manifold. The throttle body is pretty clean, I would say, so there is no need to touch it. And again, there was a video, there is a new seal, gasket seal there, so we're going to replace those a little bit later. Now before continuing, I'm gonna plug all the intake holes with some rags, clean microfiber rags, to avoid any debris falling in there, dirt, dust, or by accident, if anything can fall, including the intake hose for the throttle. There is 4 10mm bolts that hold the alternator, 2 on top and 2 at the bottom right here. The 2 bottom bolts on the alternator, there are 2 metal sleeves that hold the alternator to the engine block, and I'll show you later what I'm talking about, but make note of that. So pretty important that you're not gonna lose those. Now what I've noticed, this wiring harness completely, the plastic clips disintegrated, so I'll have to do something later about that. Let's disconnect the electrical connector from the alternator, and there is a 13mm nut for the positive cable. And I'm gonna compare the bolts to make sure that they're not different, so I can keep track and I can confirm that all 4 of them are the same. And temporarily I'm gonna zip tie the harness so it's not in the way here. And now using a pry bar, as you can see, the alternator doesn't fall because there is 2 metal sleeves that hold it down at the bottom 2 locations. So just carefully, there you go, just was able to disconnect it, and it's out. So this is the freewheel clutch. It spins the alternator one way, the engine spins it, and when the engine slows down, the freewheel clutch spins freely. Honestly, I should have taken out the brushes and checked the condition, but I didn't. At this mileage I think it's too early. And those are the metal tabs that hold the alternator to the engine block, and I'm gonna show you right now where exactly they sit. So on the engine block, the 2 bottom holes are right here. A weird design. Why not just make the alternator being held by the 4 bolts and that's it? Comment below and let me know why it's like that. There is probably a reason for that, and I'm not sure if you can avoid those metal tabs. I'm not sure. Now let's talk about how everything works. So this rubber connection, the engine side right here spins the alternator. If you're gonna ignore the replacement of the pulley, if it gets seized, it's gonna undo this bolt right here, and you're gonna lose charging. So this whole assembly will spin freely, and it can damage those this assembly here. So make sure you replace this freewheel clutch on time before you're gonna get a bigger problem. So that's why I'm doing it early enough to avoid issues later on. Check this bolt, make sure it's tight. I checked, it was all good. This rubber connection is in good condition, and I think there is no need to pay and replace it. It's in good condition, and it just sits like that. So I found this drill bit. It's 25 by 64 or 9.92 millimeters, and the reason why you need this size is because it slides through the assembly and it exactly fits the diameter of those sleeves. So let's pull out of those metal sleeves. I took a sandpaper and I wanted to clean the inside with the sandpaper, because we're gonna install those tabs flush on the body of the alternator. Use some WD-40, and right now what I'm doing, I'm preparing already the alternator to go back onto the engine block. So I just wanna finish this first. So now those metal tabs are gonna go in, and you wanna hammer them flush with the metal. And then we're gonna put the alternator on the engine, and we're gonna tap with that drill bit those metal tabs into the block. That's how it's gonna work, and I'm gonna show you later exactly how it's done. So this is the end result before installation. And now when the alternator is gonna go back onto the block, we're gonna take this drill bit, and with the hammer we're gonna tap with the hammer on the drill bit, and those tabs will go into the block until they stop going anymore inwards. So that's ready. The protective cap in the middle, there is a slot, and just take a look what's going on inside. It's crazy. All this rust, it's a bad indication that the pulley is going bad and it needs to be replaced. Just take a look, it's awful. So now the tool is gonna go inside, 17mm wrench as a counter hold. Just undo counterclockwise, and you're gonna spin this out. It's actually a reverse thread. And it's a good idea to check the alternator to feel how it spins, if there is any noise, and it's actually nice and quiet. Let's compare the two pulleys. So the factory one, there is a Japan made bearing compared to this pulley, which has a Korea bearing, both stamped Canada up front. Probably the same manufacturer, but changed some parts. And now we can test each pulley, and that's gonna be very interesting. So the original factory installed pulley spins really tight. There is a lot of leverage applied here through the wrench, and I cannot actually spin it with my hand. Let's compare the new. Spins a lot more freely, and I can actually spin it, as you can see here, with my hand, no problem. And yeah, so that's pretty stiff, but still functioning, but on the way out. I was very curious to see what's inside. It looks like it's pressed in, so let's take it apart. And I can check the bearing. The bearing is nice and smooth, no issues there. Just take a look at the amount of rust that came out. Unbelievable. So this is the assembly. Looks like all of it sits in here. The amount of rust is insane over the 15 plus years. The bearing is still functioning, and there is two springs that somehow work together. I honestly don't know exactly how it works, so I decided just to take it apart in a brutal way. So the outer spring is out and there is a plastic sleeve that I'm gonna take off, and underneath there is another spring which looks pretty heavy duty, and I'm gonna take off the bearing now using this device. So the bearing is out and this is how it looks inside. Not sure how it works exactly, but it spins solid one way and it spins freely the other way, and I guess all that thrust is coming from that bigger, more heavy duty spring. Over time, I guess condensation or whatever goes inside, definitely not water, just over time it gets destroyed. Comment below if that was interesting to see. So that are all the parts inside, and this is the amount of rust, as you can see, and we had some before too. This is just for reference. If I ever need to see the part numbers, I have it in the video here. So now it's time to install the new pulley. And the correct tightening torque is 85 Newton meters. And it's done. Reinstall the protective cap, just press it in. Now let's replace the thermostat. There is a retaining clip on the hose, and then just pull on the hose to slide it off. Some more coolant is coming out. Same principle is on the other side, on the radiator side. There is 4 Torx 30 that hold the thermostat. Remove those. I've done the thermostat on an S80 without removing the intake manifold, and let me tell you, it's possible. It's pretty tough, but it is possible, just to let you guys know. Disconnect the connector, and there is a hose, again 7mm or flathead screwdriver. Loosen the clamp, slide it off. Now there is a little plastic piece that I just took out from the engine block, and the whole assembly just fallen apart. And the reason is, let's compare the two. The metal plate fallen off, and that little plastic thing broke off into the engine block. So see this little tab here, it's intact, and look on the other side right here. So it was already damaged while it was on the vehicle. So luckily that little piece didn't go into the system. So check yours when you're gonna replace it. And I feel like it's a good idea after 15 years to replace the thermostat. It had a lot of cycles. Imagine how many times the engine warms up from -30 to +90 or 100. So yeah, that was a good idea. Peace of mind. This is what I call preventive maintenance. Installing the thermostat in reverse. The hose has a tab, so you know how it should go back in. Tighten the clamp. Vida calls 10 Newton meters, and I just tighten it by hand carefully. Reattach the connector. Done. Installing the hose. It's marked engine side. Just open the clamp, and you can't go wrong here. If you look carefully, there are plastic tabs, indents. So it's gonna go only one way, and that's how the clamp works. So it's a little bit at an angle, so those slots will align with those tabs on the thermostat. Same will apply on the radiator side. Let's put back the alternator. Just slide the rubber coupler, align it with the engine side, and temporarily secure the alternator with upper bolts. Just hand tighten it for now. So now we gotta tap in the metal sleeves into the block. You gotta wiggle the alternator and at the same time hammer them inwards using my drill bit. There is just enough room for the hammer to fit in, and you're gonna feel when it's gonna go in. So the sound will change once it's all the way in. Now we're ready to reinstall the other two bolts, and we're gonna tighten it to 24 Newton meters.
24 Newton meters.
Reattach the positive lead, and I've used some dielectric grease here to avoid any corrosion. And don't forget to reconnect the connector. Now it's time to prepare the maintenance surface for the intake manifold. On some vehicles you're gonna see here aluminum corrosion, and that's a problem because this is where you might get a source of air leak. So mine is actually in good condition, so I'm just carefully using here a fine sandpaper to completely clean the surface. And this is the result. Looks pretty good. Let's install the new gaskets and just take a look at the price. $40 each from Volvo. That's insane. 6 times 4, that's $250 for those rubber rings. Insane. The kit that I bought is $45 for all 6. Not sure if I could reuse the old ones. They're still look in pretty good condition. They're pretty soft and still thick enough, but didn't want to take any chances here. Now I had to deal with the wire harness here. I could go for the dealer and order the new tabs, but it's gonna be temporary fix. So I've just decided to use 2 zip ties, and there's actually room to secure it to the alternator, to the top of it. It's gonna work great. To prevent corrosion on the aluminum, I've lightly greased the surface here with some dielectric grease. Why not? Let's position the intake manifold and reinstall all the bolts. And 17 Newton meters to torque it properly. Reattach everything that's related to the manifold here. Reattach the hose on the throttle body and tighten the clamp. Reconnect the connector. Detach the hose and close the drain plug. Now we're gonna mix 50-50 fresh Volvo concentrate coolant. Every time I do some work on when coolant needs to be drained, I will just add the new coolant. This way I keep it nice and fresh in the system. And now it's just a matter of bleeding the system. Just run the engine until it reaches operating temperature. So everything looks like it's working well. Everything spins nicely. and I'm gonna keep an eye on all the connections to make sure I don't have any coolant leaks and any noises. I'm gonna put the climate control into manual mode, full heat, until I get hot air blowing from the vents, and keep some coolant with you because the level might drop as you drive. Just periodically check. I hope that this video was very helpful. Please like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time, guys. Bye bye.